We should start a band, dude.
I got my guitars right here.
I noticed they're hanging on your wall.
You've never commented on the fact that my guitars are behind me on camera now.
I don't want to encourage that behavior.
What behavior?
That mid-40s behavior. That suburban dad behavior.
Of having the guitars on the wall or having them nearby, behind me on camera?
On the wall, behind you on camera. You know what you're doing.
No, I got to tell you, you're never going to believe this. So I put these guitars
My
up.
wife insisted I put them up.
No, it's reluctantly. I do like to have them hanging up so it's easier for me to use them when I would like to play guitar. Mm-hmm. The 3 months out of the year that I play guitar when I play with the dad cover band. But they were like discreetly hung off in the corner of the basement. And that whole area has been taken over by a model train set. This is my wife's new hobby with my older child.
Oh, okay.
A model train set. And so I had to relocate my guitars. The only wall left to put them on is back here where I sit on my desk. Yeah.
You still have a little bit of blank wall space directly behind you. Is that where you're going to put your old ribbons and framed baseball jerseys?
I mean, I have one right here. I have one of the only awards I ever got right here. Can you read this?
Yeah.
Is it backwards?
Harding Middle School Outstanding 8th Grade Boy.
Can you believe that this was handed out to somebody?
Yeah. And I will say, I still think you're an outstanding 8th grade boy.
I've been doing it for 32 years at this point, being an 8th grade boy. It's been great.
Now, when you were an outstanding 8th grade boy, had you hit a growth spurt yet?
Oh, I definitely had facial hair when I was given that. Yes. I was about this height too in 8th grade.
Nice.
Like I stopped growing in 8th grade.
Wow.
Yeah. You want to know what the worst part about that award was? Well, not worst, but the funniest part is that I was only a co-boy.
It was supposed to be given to another boy?
There were two boys. They were like, we can't choose between these very good 8th grade boys. So we got to give out 2 of these this year.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know the other boy well? Was he a friend of yours?
He was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Mark Ziak, wherever he is right now. Germany somewhere, I think. Actually, he married a German and moved to Germany, I believe.
Ah, good for him.
Yeah.
Hopefully one of the nice parts of Germany. Hopefully a Hamburg. Not really a Dresden.
Yeah, I mean, the only part of Germany I've been in Frankfurt now, and I've been to Baden-Baden, and I've been to the part by Alsace. I've been to a few parts of Germany, I guess.
Well, that's nice of you.
The Germans are nice.
The Germans are pretty nice.
Yeah. They're like a good time. So anyway, these guitars on my wall.
They hate credit cards, though, I'll tell you that.
Germans?
9, cash only, please. Everywhere in Berlin was cash only every time I would go.
Interesting.
It was very annoying.
That is kind of annoying. Or as they say in Germany, annoying.
Yeah.
So clients have started commenting when I'm on conference calls, of course.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and I have to always be like, I didn't really want these up on the wall behind me because I'm not like that good at guitar. But it is better than just having my laundry room door behind me, I guess.
To which the clients reply, and we're going to take our business elsewhere.
Exactly. This guy's a poser.
Why are we doing business with the cover band when we could do business with the actual band?
Right. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to episode 313 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, and strategies for the casual spike. My name is Stanislav here in Chicago, and with me on the line, also from elsewhere in Chicago, it's the Godfather, Dave Harbarger.
I'm here to rock. I'm here to pull these guitars down from this wall and play you a singer-songwriter kind of medley.
You don't really strike me as the singer-songwriter type.
No, oh man, I learned a lot of like Elliott Smith on guitar. Like that was definitely what I was doing.
It occurs to me, I've actually never seen you play. I've never seen your band. You never invite me to your gigs.
I'll invite you. I think this year we'll have one that's accessible to the public.
That's all ages.
Yes, an all ages show. I have played the Seinfeld theme on an episode of the Dive Down before, which maybe you've forgotten because it was 200 episodes ago.
Yeah.
But yes. on my bass, slapping the bass, playing the Seinfeld theme.
We might have time for that this week because it's just you and me today.
Yeah, we got to fill the time with something.
Yeah, because Lord knows, I don't know what's going on.
I like your ears. We didn't talk about your ear hat. What's going on with your ear hat? Your fuzzy ears.
Yeah, I'm wearing bear ears.
Mm-hmm.
My kid put them on me.
Mm-hmm.
Insisted I wear them for the rest of the night. And then I just sort of forgot to take them off. And then I saw myself on camera and I'm like, these ears are hitting.
This is definitely YouTube content for someone. I'll say that. It's for someone.
Yeah, you know how sometimes headphones have like the cat ears that light up to the music?
Do I? Yes, I do.
You know those headphones you buy every time you're at the airport?
Yeah, no, it's more the ones that my favorite YouTubers have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I these are my cat ear headphones at home.
Right.
Where
Cat ear headphones at home.
It's just an extra set of bear ears that I put over my normal podcasting headset.
Yeah. Perfect.
I think it looks good.
Yeah. And this week, what are we doing this week on the show?
Turns out there was a bunch of modern tournaments this weekend.
Yeah. We thought we were done, but turns out we had barely scratched the surface on competitive modern in this last little gasps of this format.
That's true. There was the Hunter Burton Memorial Open down in Texas. We had a Magic Spotlight in Utrecht. Mm-hmm. In Europe?
That's
I think
right.
Utrecht is in the Netherlands.
It is in the Netherlands. That's right.
And the Southeast Asia Modern RC took place this weekend as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
we're not going to do what we've done the last couple of weeks because I think it's a lot of the same.
Yeah.
Right. We can't just talk about how much of the percentage the most popular deck in the room, which was once again Breach.
Not in all of them, it wasn't actually. I've just become aware that it wasn't. But we'll save that for a minute.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about how well Breach converted and, you know, how everyone else is kind of grasping at straws. Instead, we're going to do an extended Cool Decks Inc. That'll be the focus of our tournament chatter.
It will be. I do have to be honest. Not as many cool decks in the top hundreds of these tournaments as I was hoping. So what we're going to do is give some takes just to catch you up on what was happening here right now. Do a little bit of talking about the meta through that. And then we will talk about 3 to 5 decks that I think are interesting, that were interesting lists, and that me and possibly Stan think will be something to look at after an inevitable ban happens in Modern. Mm-hmm. It has to be an inevitable ban, but
theoretically there will be time left in the episode to fill. In which case, we're going to fill that time with some conversations over new cards from Dragonstorm Tarkir, which at the time of recording, Monday night, I'm aware of, and Dave is not.
Right.
So we're going to get some live reactions from David after I've sifted through some of my favorites from the initial reveal, which is happening tomorrow, our time on Tuesday. So when this episode drops, you all will have seen them. Dave will have not, and we'll see how right or wrong he is in his knee-jerk reactions to these things.
Yeah, perfect. I can't wait to talk about the Sultai 7 drop with Death Touch that we'll be talking about as an example of something.
Yeah, I'm especially excited to hear your reaction to the new fetch land that can fetch 3 basic land types.
Yeah, I'm sure that's happening.
But it has to come in untapped. They're saying it's good with Triomes.
Sounds amazing. Yeah, that's not going to happen. All right, so first, some housekeeping.
We got 3 new patrons to join the Dive Down Nation. We got, now I believe this is pronounced Thierry. Mm-hmm. There's a soccer player for Arsenal, Thierry Henry.
Yep, I believe Thierry is returning, so welcome back, Thierry.
Sweet.
I believe.
Sweet. And that's because of Henri. That is why I'm assuming this patron is pronouncing their name Thierry as well. We also got a patron by the name of Alice Cooper. Mm-hmm. Could be the aging rocker.
School's out forever.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
And Ward Zero.
Yeah.
Hello.
Ward Zero.
Hello to the new patrons in the Dive Down Nation. If you'd like to join our Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/thedivedown. Here's my 2 favorite perks of our Patreon. You get into the Discord, where I'm always cracking jokes.
Testing out your tight 5.
You also get access to my and Shane's Patreon exclusive, for now, sister show, What's That in Your Pocket? Which I think the most recent episode dropped after Dive Down episode 312. So in between the last episode and the one you're listening to right now, we added a new episode of What's That in Your Pocket to the Patreon feed. Check it out. We're talking about the next couple episodes. So we're going to keep it going. It's fun.
What was episode 3 about? Would you like to share a little bit of enticement?
Yeah, I talk about how I played and beat the Super Nintendo classic RPG Earthbound entirely on my cell phone. And we also talk about emulating retro games in general and how you can do that on cell phones, dedicated emulator technology, or on some of the stuff you have lying around the house, like your Steam Deck. So that's what we talk about. It's emulators and how I emulated one game to completion.
Yeah, perfect.
Weird game Earthbound is, I'll tell you what.
I mean, the pictures you showed me were strange.
They're strange. One of the enemies...
A lot of cultists.
Yeah, there's a lot of cultists. There's a lot of weird stuff. One of the enemies that you encounter in this one portion of the game, I think it's literally called Dali's painting, and it's just like a melting piece of art.
Amazing.
It's a very avant-garde game full of very avant-garde elements.
From 30 years ago? 95-ish?
Give or take, yeah.
All right.
In Japan, that game is called Mother 2, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
I love it. No, I don't know. I don't know much about this. Mother
you don't
2
know about
is amazing.
Mother 2?
Mother 2. No, it's up there with on my list of sequels with Troll 2 and a couple other things.
So find that over at patreon.com/thedivedown. We have a store at thedivedown.com/store. We have some promo codes with our friends at Heavy Play. The Dive Down 2025 gets you 10% off your first order at Heavy Play. Playmats, deck boxes, sleeves, you name it. They got it all now. And of course, Mana Traders get 25% cash back after 3 months of service with promo code The Dive Down, all one word.
That's right.
Modern. Still a format we love to play. I'm still playing it in the mornings in my little cafe days.
Oh yeah, what have you been playing lately?
I've been playing Living End.
Well, you did show me a screen grab of that. Yeah, Living End.
Yeah, I'm currently 2-1 in a league with Living End.
Nice.
Yeah. I had to play against Dredge.
That seems hard.
They took a game.
Oh, but you still won?
But I took the match.
Wow.
Yeah, dog.
Yeah. I saw you posted some forlorn screenshots of yourself going up against a Douthie Voidwalker today. And I was like, well, that seems hard.
Yeah, that was against the Hollow One opponent, whom I also managed to best in 3 games. Yeah, Douthie was annoying. I just scooped to Douthie. But the Living End player was trying to play Tormod script against me. And if you just wait till turn 4 and you cast a small Living End, they crack the crypt. After the crypt trigger resolves, you just cycle in 1 or 2 more cards. Like maybe you can cycle in 1 card for 1 mana and then cycle in a Street Wraith for no mana, and then boom, you're living it. Living End is actually putting some threats on the ground.
You are living then still.
That's better than dying.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you know the rules. All right. Not a ton of Living End this weekend, although a little bit. There was a couple that I saw.
Yo, there's a Living End in a top 8.
Is there?
Yeah, well, the Southeast Asia
so many
top
things
8
in top 8s.
The Southeast Asia top 8 has some icons of MTG.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yes.
So like Stan talked about in the intro, we had 3 pretty high-level tournaments this weekend of various sizes. The Hunter Burton Memorial, the Spotlight in Utrecht, and an RC somewhere in Southeast Asia. I could not tell the location of this from the tournament page. Maybe Stan can find it.
David, it's at the Royal River Hotel.
Yeah, in what city?
How many cities have a Royal River Hotel, Dave?
I'm going to guess a lot.
All right, while you talk, I'll Google.
You can figure that out. Okay. And like you said, we're not going to try to retread too much here. And it's almost certain that Underworld Breach will be banned on March 31st. And so everything is going to change in about 2 weeks. So we're going to talk a little bit about what happened. I've kind of organized it, like I said, into a series of takes. Sometimes I like to lead with the headlines, my reactions, and kind of provide stats as proof of my reactions instead of just going through lists. So we're going to do that. And then, like I said, we got a couple of decks to look at. So here we go. Number
David,
one. Yes.
It's in Bangkok. It's in Bangkok. Yeah.
Great. You ever been?
I've never been to Asia. Anywhere in Asia.
Okay. I've never been to Thailand. I've been to Vietnam and Singapore, a couple other places. Never there.
Well, you're incredibly cultured.
I am.
It's what makes you the best boy.
It's what made me the best 8th grade boy. That's right. Outstanding 8th grade boy. Outstanding.
Yeah. I think best boy, isn't that
that's
credit?
like a gaffer. Yeah. That's somebody who works on a set. Yeah. All right. So my number one take from this, and Stan, let me know what you think about this. I believe, given the attendance of these events and things that I've continued to read anecdotally online, that Breach's dominance is not really dampering people's enthusiasm for the format, even though everybody's kind of acknowledging Breach is a problem and that it's going to go and that we wish it wasn't here. People seem to still be playing and participating. And here is my evidence. There were 1,590 people in the Utrecht event. That's a huge tournament. That would have been a big GP back in the day, let alone these days where Paper Magic is a bit less popular than it was, say, when we started the podcast. The Hunter Burton Memorial had 359 in the main event, which is, the main event. That's a big tournament. I think it's taken on a little bit more of a casual flavor. Like there are people who are tryhards and stuff there, but it's definitely something where people go to support a worthy cause, almost as much as they go to play Magic. So I think that's pretty good for the main event there. The RC was an RC. It had 161 people, which seems to be on par for the other events that we've seen in Asia, RCs, like the one that we talked about in China a couple of weeks ago. Stan, what do you think?
So the modern attendance in Europe does not surprise me, in part because Europe doesn't get a lot of modern events this year. And 2 words, my friend: Ryanair. Flying intercontinental in Europe, very, very affordable.
Yeah.
Or take a train. A little longer, but still pretty affordable. And Netherlands is nice this time of year, so I believe it. In terms of your grander theory that Breach's dominance is not putting a damper on people's love of Modern, are you surprised by that?
I am surprised by that, given how angry people were in the time periods leading up to, say, when The Ring was banned, or any number of other bans that we've had over the last 18 months or so. The Nadu, the moments before Nadu was banned, all of those things.
Yeah.
So
at least the moments before Nadu was banned, we didn't really have large-scale tournament data to look at to understand exactly its impact on the format. There may be more internal RCQ data that Wizards would have access to that we simply would not.
Right.
But I think Modern is a format where you're bought in. And if you have a chance to play it, you're just going to play it. And there are ways to beat Breach. It's not like Breach is winning all of these tournaments.
No, in fact, we'll have a talk about that in a moment.
Yeah, so there's always going to be a best deck, and sometimes that best deck is going to be a problem, and I think we're in that situation right now, but people love their decks. And once we start looking at some of the decks that people brought to the tournament, as well as some of the decks that did surprisingly well at this tournament, I think there's a lot to be encouraged about within the state of Modern, despite the presence of Underworld Breach, the card in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. So why don't we go on to the next point, which is because this meta that we saw this weekend was not quite as tryhard as Charlotte was, or Portland even, perhaps. There was only one RC here, so we're looking at all these samples. The metagame has kind of returned to the mean here, right? So Charlotte, 23% of Charlotte was Breach. That was not the case at Utrecht. It was 12.2% of the meta followed by 11.5% for Blink and 10.8% for Eldrazi Ramp. If you look at it was harder to see the metagame data for the Southeast Asia RC, but the Hunter Burton, from a post by El Pablo 80, so thank you for posting a list of the breakdown. Some of these are probably not correct. Eldrazi Ramp was, according to this list, the highest deck with 29. Grinding Breach had at least 25 across two different archetype names here. So that was maybe in second place. And then Orzhov was with 23, but there's also another entry here on Pablo's list that says Orzhov midrange had 7. So there might have been 30 Orzhov decks here. So it might have been 10%. This meta breakdown is a little bit, it's not consolidated, but there's a chance that Breach wasn't even the most popular deck at Hunter Burton, which is pretty interesting.
According to mtgdex.net, which is what we use for our win rate matrices.
Do they have this up now? They didn't have it yesterday when I was making the notes.
They have Hunter Burton right now. According to this website, Temur was not the most popular deck, nor was it the second most popular deck. According to MTG Dex, the most popular was Blink with 11%, followed by Eldrazi with 10, followed by Temur with 9.
There you go.
I wonder, this is conspiratorial, but I wonder if people are starting to move their Temur Breach cards.
Oh, I think that's some of it. I also just think that people who are showing up to these events are like, it's not guaranteed to win. It's not feeling terrible sometimes for people to play against, maybe not as much as against the One Ring. And so they're just bringing whatever they want to. And I also think that there are still people who don't want to buy Mox Opal. They're just like, I'm going to play Modern. I'm not going to buy Mox Opal, whatever.
Yeah. And
so
I don't want to have to lose to Mill all day. That's what I'd be thinking if I was a Breach player.
Well, there's that too, of course. So it's pretty interesting that the meta has sort of shifted back down, like you said, after the RC, at least after Charlotte. And now what we have is a field that has 3 top decks that are pretty bunched together pretty well. And then going back to Utrecht for just an overall of what was going on, Boros was the next deck with 7.9%, Domain Zoo 5.3%, Amulet Titan with 4%, Dimir Murktide with 3.5%, Mill 3.0%, and Hollow One at 2.5%. So a bunch of kind of like lower decks there, especially when you get to the end of the row. People believing that Dimir Mill is a good matchup against Breach and et cetera. So there's some metagaming going on there. Performance-wise, at least at Utrecht, Grinding Breach did have the best day 2 conversion. It converted 17.5% of the time. So it moved from, not converted 17.5% of the time. It was 17.5 of the day 2 field when it was only 12% of the day 1 field. So it went up 5%. So guess what? It's not like anybody is saying these cards are not going to get banned or something's not going to get banned. This deck is going to get banned. But it's interesting to see that people are kind of going along anyway and having the metagame be a little bit more interesting. The other deck that had the best gain from day 1 to day 2, there's 2 really. Boros Energy went from 7.9 to 9.6, and Domain Zoo went from 5.3 to 7.1%.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
I was starting to worry a little bit about Boros.
I mean, you're planning on piloting that deck in the next RCQ season, or you think, because you have Living End too, right?
I do have Living End. That's not why I'm playing it necessarily, right. But I'm just so bought into Boros with a bunch of full art cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the deck. I truly love playing it. So yeah, I'm not really playing Living End to consider it for the next RCQ season. It's more that I was just starting to worry that Boros was dropping off, and I'm so bought in with all of my full art cards, and I genuinely love the strategy that I want to keep playing it. And some of the data over the last month or so in particular made it seem like maybe Boros's power level was starting to drop off and was especially vulnerable to Eldrazi, but just didn't necessarily have the same edge against the broader metagame as it did, say, 3-4 months ago. Mm-hmm. But some of this initial data from the Netherlands is promising, and I think we're seeing data from Magic Online, which we're not talking about today, but I'm still keeping an eye on, that suggests that Boros isn't going anywhere and is still a perfectly viable deck.
Yeah, and we can talk about that a little more in Cool Decks Inc. if we want to, or Risers in the new season, perhaps. So take number 3, or observation number 3. It's not really a take. So we've been talking about grinding Breach. We've been talking about Boros Energy because that's what we do. We've talked a little bit about Eldrazi right now, but I think if you look at the top 8s of these tournaments, Orzhov is the story of the weekend, I think. And you may not have seen, or people listening may not have seen, but it was in the finals of each of these 3 tournaments. It beat Belcher at the Hunter Burton Memorial. It beat Breach at Utrecht and lost to Demir in Southeast Asia. So Orzhov made the finals of all 3. And the really interesting thing here is they are slightly different lists. The person who was piloting Orzhov at the Hunter Burton did not have Ketramos in their deck. And apparently I read on Reddit that they just didn't want to buy them. So they were playing more of the white Phantom, the Land Destruction Phantom. They were also still playing Aether Vial in their deck. In some of the other cases, people are not playing Aether Vial anymore and are leaning harder into things like Thoughtseize or trying to be a little bit more interactive with the deck than trying to just like value people out. So it's an Orzhov kind of weekend. But here's the twist, or what I think is a twist. At the RC, Orzhov was only a 49% win deck and really only beats Boros and Demir. According to mtgdecks.net, if you look at the modern sample over the last 30 days, it's at best a 50% deck and doesn't really have a ton of positive matchups like we talked about last time. So what is going on with this deck that people are continuing to pick it up, but the results are looking spotty?
The results were always spotty.
Yes, are continuing to look spotty. So it's getting more popular, but the results are still looking kind of spotty.
My theory, after having played it, and I'm just going to echo what I shared when I played it a couple weeks ago for my modern dose of Ketramos, is the deck is just hella fun to play.
Okay.
It's just the way you're interacting with your opponents, the synergies that you're trying to line up with your own creatures, the 2 and 3 card combos you're trying to establish, the way you're trying to cheat in your overlords of the Baelmerk. It's just fun. It's just really fun. And you're doing Jundi stuff in a weird way where you're not always winning, but when you are winning, you're having a great time of doing it. And it feels like you're running away with the game. So that's my theory of why people are picking it up in more numbers, because they just enjoy playing it. And it's not weak. I think there are situations where scamming Solitude 2 or 3 times in a row and then having one to, having one that you've scammed, having extra ones to just throw away. And then in the decks that do have Ketramos, never going down on cards in that exchange.
Right.
Like you just feel like you're streets ahead of your opponents. But I don't think there was any time where people were saying that this deck is tier 1 in power level. I think it's just mostly fair and is doing this nice mid-range controlling tightrope walk. Dave is showing me his Ketramos copies, which I'm sure I'll ask to borrow in due time.
You need some Overlord of the Baelmerks. I'm really thinking about trying to, because that's the only card that I need for this list is the Overlords, and I think I'm going to pick this one up for this RCQ season or the next little era of the dive down. And let me tell you why. Mm-hmm. It has kind of a middling record against a bunch of decks, but it's also not very good against Breach. And if Breach goes away, I think there's a chance that the whole meta will become a little bit more creature heavy again. And I do think Ketramos and Friends are good against that. And I think there's a chance that it could be a riser coming into the tournament to the next RTQ season. As good as it's doing now, or as prevalent as it is now, I think it could become even more so.
Yeah. Yeah. A Paul Riser.
A Paul Riser. Yeah.
Mad about you, Ketramos.
Mad about Ketramos.
Isn't this what we want out of our best decks, or at least our most popular decks too? Just hovering around a 50% win rate with no clear favorable advantages against the field and just doing kind of mid-rangey creature control stuff for fun and occasional profit. What more could you ask for?
Exactly. I do kind of think this deck is just scam again. Like it's just another incarnation of scam. Like that's what it is, right?
It's scam with more creatures.
It's scam with more creatures. It's scam with white instead of red. And, this is the scam that we all thought there would be when we first saw Grief being printed. And now we're so far down the pipe that Solitude is the thing we're abusing with Ephemerate right now. And that lets us abuse a whole lot of other things. I guess really the truth is it's really Overload of the Baelmerk plus Philia. That's really the crazy thing that people are doing these days. Or is that not the one? What's the black one?
Overload of the Baelmerk.
Is it Baelmerk? Yeah. So we'll see. But I do think in spite of the data looking kind of like mid on it, I still kind of would identify it as something that I think will get better once Underworld Breach is gone.
Mm-hmm. We wouldn't be in this Breach problem if they just kept Grief in the format.
You think?
Maybe that's what they'll do on March 31st.
I'm sure they're going to unbrand Grief.
Yeah.
And just make all the Living End players and all the scam players so happy.
I will raise you 4 Ketramos with 2 Showcase March of Otherworldly Light.
Ooh. I have one of those, apples. Actually.
All right. Next observation or take?
Last observation gets us into our Cool Decks Inc. or what we said we were going to do, which, like I said, I looked at about the top 100 of each of these tournaments or so, and I didn't find a ton of super fascinating lists, but the top 8s were pretty interesting themselves, and they actually came off as kind of diverse. Mm-hmm. So across the 24 decks, across the Southeast Asia RC, Utrecht, and the Hunter Burton, there were 5 Breach decks, 4 Orzhov decks, and then no other deck that had more than 2. So 9 decks between Breach and Orzhov, then everything else was just 2 ofs. Those 2 ofs were Titan, Eldrazi, and Belcher. Those are the only 2 ofs. And then there were 9 single decks. And this list is very wild. So we had a Dimir. Yes. We have a Living End.
Oh.
Okay. We have a Zoo.
Okay.
Then we have a Hollow One, which I think we're all kind of used to, but we're going to talk about this list in a little bit.
Yeah, I think Hollow One is a deck with an up arrow next to it, just in general.
Well, I kind of like this particular list, and if you haven't seen it, I'll show it to you in a little bit. Brood Scale. Yeah. But then we have an Energy.
Okay.
And then we had 3 really spicy ones. We had a Grixis Shadow, a Merfolk, and a Twin.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, the Twin and Merfolk were both at the small... Oh, no, they weren't. So the Twin was at the Southeast Asia event. The Merfolk was at the Hunter Burton. And the Shadow was at Utrecht, I believe. Yeah, it was the 8th place player. So the Shadow was piloted by... We'll talk about these in a minute. So lots of random one-ofs, and I think we're going to talk about these one-ofs and a couple of other things from here. So the first one I wanted to talk about, Hollow One, top 4 Utrecht by Vladimir Yerger. And here's what was cool about this one. Vengevine. It is a all-in discard Hollow One aggro list that has your Hollow One plan, but instead of trying to make you a mid-range deck by playing the Nethergoyf, what we're doing instead is playing Vengevine and Blazing Rootwalla to just try to turn on totally absurd first couple of turns, where you are playing a couple of creatures, bringing back a bunch of Vengevines, doing things for 0 cost, just dumping your hands and not even caring about it.
Yes. I've played against this deck.
Oh, okay.
And it was good.
Was it?
You know what's better than a 4/3 haste Vengevine?
What's that?
A 6/5 flying haste Vengevine with Detective's Phoenix attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is one of the most powerful plays. It's a little bit of a powerful drug when you get the Hollow One into Detective's Phoenix to work. Yeah. So having another card that does similar is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so this list for Blazing Rootwalla, for Detective's Phoenix, for Hollow One, for Mako. Street Wraith, Vengevine, Fear of Missing Out is a 2 of, Flameblade Adept is a 2 of, and Ox of Agonis, and then 12 sorcery speed discard outlets, Burning Inquiry, Faithless Looting, Goblin Lore, a single Lightning Bolt in this list. And then the other key card that's in these lists that people might forget is 3 times Arena of Glory.
Mm-hmm. So although I just said that it feels like Hollow One has an up arrow next to it, I have a theory that it benefits from all the attention people are paying to Breach decks in particular. And if Breach is not in the format, people can play better Graveyard Hate.
I was just wondering if you were gonna, because I was like, well, everybody's playing Graveyard Hate for Breach, and so this feels like it gets some splash damage from that. But you're kind of saying, as we've talked about before, Breach needs lots of different kinds of hate to be able to match up against. And so if people have less slots that they have to devote to getting rid of colorless spells or something, they'll have more place for Leyline of the Void or something.
Yeah, I think people tend to rely more on Stony Silence and Orum's Chant and Silence effects and Artifact Enchantment Hate rather than Graveyard Hate in particular.
Yeah.
In part because some of the best Graveyard Hate is hard to play right now. You don't really want to play Rest in Peace because if you're Boros or you're Orzhov, you care about your graveyard too. You don't really want to play Leyline of the Void because there aren't a lot of black decks that can play it as a 4-drop if they have to. And there isn't enough ways to discard it for value because Faithless Looting isn't really popping off anywhere other than the Hollow One decks.
Yeah.
So I think Leyline of the Void is a little bit of a liability right now just because it's such a dead draw in a format, in a season of Modern where you can't afford dead draws in the mid to late game. So I think if we get to the point where we don't have to dedicate 4 to 6 slots in our sideboard to dealing with one deck in particular, you might start to see more things like Endurance pop up or, something more effective than just Surgical, because I think Surgical isn't really enough against a deck like Hollow One.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about this deck, because we should go through these a little bit quicker, even though I love Hollow One a lot too. One is this deck folds really hard to Graveyard Hate, of course.
Yeah.
And in particular, I worry a little bit about a list with Vengevine if it folds even harder than what there was before. But however, I haven't been able to play this deck with Mako being here and having 6 things that get to attack using your discards but aren't reliant on the graveyard. I'm wondering if that helps a little bit with Graveyard Hate compared to where the deck was a couple months ago. It's certainly helping with the kind of anecdotal results. Its result is popping up more often than it was before, but we will see. All right, in that top 8, there was one other deck that I wanted to talk about, and that is Grixis Shadow by 8th place by Lorenzo Bellatini. This is just Murktide without the Murktides, but it's pretty fun to see Shadow here. So there's 2, it's Death Shadow, Psychic Frog, Ragavan, Nimble, Pilfer, and 2 Murktide Regents for 14 threats. Then you've got EI, Thoughtseize, Molten Collapse, a couple of Preordain, Counterspell, Fatal Push, Force Negation, Dismember, Spell Snares, Cling to Dust, and Dress Down. So we're also running the kind of like Grixis Shadow versus Dress Down. Dress Down is your kind of like Teamer Battle Rage here. So cool list. Still looking like a very hard list to play, to be honest, but full of cards that I like. So I thought that this was a pretty cool deck to see that popped up.
I can dig it.
Yeah. 2 really fast hits that I had from Utrecht before we talk about some of the other ones. Azorius Miracles, believe it or not, someone came in 67th place, I believe it was.
Dude, Azorius Miracles won a Modern Challenge in the last week.
Oh, really? I haven't heard that. Okay.
Yeah, for Terminus.
Yes. This list by Jordit P94, Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah.
Teferi Hero Dominaria for Terminus.
Right.
For Brain Surge. Do you remember Brain Surge?
No.
So Brain Surge is from MH3 and is an instant that I believe costs, so the picture is not loading right now, but it's 2 generic and a blue for an instant that says draw 4 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. So it is a extremely nerfed Brainstorm that they're still making work in this deck. Counterspell, opt, yada, yada, yada. There's 2 Cryptic Command in here. I thought this deck was cool.
Opt is interesting.
Yeah.
There's better instant speed 1-mana cantrips.
Yeah, but you get to decide if you want to leave Terminus on top with opt. Maybe a little more easily than you do with... Maybe you don't want stuff to go in your graveyard for some reason.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And then is it control?
With opt, you either scry it to the bottom or draw it.
That's what I mean. Yeah, maybe you don't want to put anything in your graveyard for some reason, so you're just scrying instead.
Yeah.
From consider. All right, is it control? Came in 17th. The name of this person is Bastion Gorm Lang. And this deck was another Jace the Mind Sculptor sighting. Snapcaster Mage, Murktide Regent, Subtlety, Thundertrap Trainer. It's that kind of like blue-red list that we saw, but it's a little powered up. Using Murktide is something to help you with threats, which I thought was kind of interesting. Is it Murktide, but Jace?
You know what this looks like to me?
What's that?
This is a Blue Moon deck.
It's kind of Blue Moon, yeah.
It's got 2 main deck Blood Moon.
Yep.
It's just missing on the Ragavance to cheat it out earlier. And it has the 4 Flame of Anor, so I guess you can look at this almost as an Is It Wizards deck, even though the only wizards are Snapcaster Mage and Thundertrap Trainer, but Flame of Anor can be good even if it's just used for one mode.
All right. So I have 2 lists that I want to talk about really quickly from Hunter Burton, very quickly. So one is just out of respect, Merfolk from Jonathan Moore. And I just wanted to take a look at it and see if we have any new cards in Merfolk since the last time we saw one. And there is a card from Duskmourn in here.
Flood Pit's Drowner.
Yep. It is a generic and a blue for a 2/1 flash vigilance. When Drowner enters, tap target creature and opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. And then it has an activated ability that says generic and a blue, tap it, shuffle Flood Pit's Drowner and target creature with a stun counter on it into their owner's libraries. It's a little bit of removal.
Yeah.
If you can get it to hang around for a turn. So other than that, it kind of looks like Merfolk, which, not a ton to talk about for me here, but it's always fun to see Merfolk when it pops up and see what little pieces people have picked up over the years.
I think one neat deck building choice that this person made or adopted is 3 copies of Gloom Lake Verge. Which is the blue-black Verge that taps for blue by default and taps for black if you control an island or a swamp. Although this deck is technically mono blue, it has 3 copies of Dismember across the 75. And maybe there's some situations where you just want to save on 2 life. And I love using a Verge in this type of condition where you're all in on one color, but you might need to stretch into a second color instead of paying Phyrexian mana, or maybe there's a different circumstance. One of the cards that we saw from Dragonstorm Tarkir, which you haven't seen yet, David, is kind of like a charm that lets you either pay a color of mana or 2 generic mana. And Gloom Lakes or Gloom Lake Verge or Verges in general are interesting in a situation like that where you can pay for a card by other means, but if you can stretch into an extra color, you can pay for that spell more efficiently. And I might be interested in looking for more examples of that in the months and years ahead for this cycle of lands, adding like a bit of flexibility when you just want to make your spells actually just more efficient to cast.
Yep. And then real quick, I was going to mention that there's 2 Mindspring Merfolk in here as well, which is the Merfolk from Aetherdrift. It's a single Merfolk wizard for a single blue to 1/1. It has exhaust, X, blue, tap it, draw X cards, put a +1/+1 counter on each Merfolk creature you control. So it makes your Merfolks bigger and lets you draw a bunch of cards. It lets you brain geyser, basically, if you want to. All right, so that's cool. There is another list here that I just noticed that came in 23rd place here that is called Dimir Ninjas.
Yes, I was just looking at this.
And it doesn't have a ton of ninjas in it. I don't want to be too disappointing, but it does have 2 Kaido Bane of Nightmares from Gloomhaven What's that called? Duskmourn, not Gloomhaven. Duskmourn is Gloomhaven's that board game. Duskmourn.
It's literally the only ninja.
Yeah, it's the only ninja. So this is really just blue-black plus Kaido. So, which,
You got us. You got us to click.
You got us to click. We did it. And then the last list that I wanted to mention really quickly was... That's it, actually. Oh, Is It Twin? Is It Twin by Jacob Hart in the Southeast Asia RC. Not a lot to look into here. It's pretty much what you would expect for Is It Twin. So just wanted to give a little tip of the hat to Jacob, but the list is kind of like what we thinking it might be.
I mean, what we were thinking it might be is 4 Deceiver Exarch, 4 Thundertrap Trainer. Plus, it's got 2 main deck mate Magus of the Moon, a couple of Snapcaster Mages, 4 Tamio.
Yeah.
4 Splinter Twin. So, and then 21 spells, including 4 Flame of Anor. So it's sort of straddling the Is It Wizard deck, and even playing an extra wizard in the form of Magus and Tamio, for that matter.
Yeah.
So that you have this other angle to the deck, even though I think that secondary angle is more of the control shell, and you're probably trying to win with Splinter Twin, but in the worst case scenario, maybe you can win with Snapcaster and Magus Beats.
Yeah, I will say this is the version, I think, when I tried Twin a couple of months ago, the one that this is close to the one that I felt like was the best, right? It was kind of like a controlling. It had Tamio, which is a powerful card, and then you kind of have Twin as a combo kill at the end. I preferred this to the Teamer Twin that was really popular for a bit there. But so that's it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got to talk about a few cards. We only have a little bit of time here.
Look, Modern is healing.
Yeah.
Even though we haven't excised the wound yet, I think this is why we have 1,500 people show up by train, bus, or affordable airfare to the Netherlands, is because you can still sometimes get away with stuff like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tarkir Dragonstorm.
The clans are back.
They're back. We've got about 10 or 15 minutes here.
Yes, and we're going to use as few of those minutes as possible.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen, and I am going to make you look at these cards.
Once again, thank you to Polygon and Stan's ongoing relationship with Polygon for getting him access to these cards, and for us to have a little look at them together, give some real-time reactions.
Yeah, I will mention by the time this episode comes out, my spoiler article it's not a spoiler card, so I wouldn't even necessarily call it a spoiler article, but it's the article that I wrote to come out in conjunction with the initial reveal of Tarkir will be out. So Google Magic the Gathering on Polygon and you will find my articles that way. Give us a read. I actually talk about Commander primarily, this really cool new Absent Commander card.
Okay.
And there'll be another card coming in a couple weeks, or another article coming in a couple weeks. I'll promote it on the podcast, but keep an eye out on that. I'll also make sure to promote it on our Blue Sky accounts once it is live. So more to come in terms of my work with Polygon.
Yeah.
But the first card I want to show you is a reprint.
Yeah.
A very exciting reprint. First time in Pioneer. Hasn't been standard in ages. That's Craterhoof Behemoth.
Craterhoof Behemoth.
We have a lot of really good mana generating elves in Pioneer. We've just never had a good place to put that mana.
And this is the best place to put that mana.
If you have like Elvish Harbarger, whatever we call him, he looks like you, so I'll name him after you.
Right.
You can sink mana into an effect like that where you give your creatures +3/+3 and Death Touch or something. But if you're in a deck that's producing 1 million tokens, maybe it's not elves. I'm sure there's other examples of this. But if you're in a deck that's producing a ton of tokens that can also generate a ton of mana, Craterhoof is just like the ultimate finisher. And I think we're going to potentially open the doors, if anyone's still playing Pioneer by the time the set comes out, to have ways to just overrun an opponent for the win in a rampy, low-to-the-ground creature deck. All right, the next one I want to share with you is a new Elspeth.
Okay.
3 white for Elspeth Stormslayer. It has a static. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. +1, create a 1/1 white soldier token. 0 to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. They gain flying until the turn.
Okay.
And then -3 to destroy target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less.
Ooh. This is a real callback to Elspeth of Theros, Sun's Champion. It's very close to the same abilities, but more powerful. But way more.
I feel like this is templated in order to be a control finisher again, in a way that Elspeth used to be. And that's what I like about it, is that your +1 is actually creating 2 tokens. And if you do that on turn 1, on the next turn, you're making your 2 1/1s into 2 2s. You're swinging for 4. Or if you have a problematic permanent on the board, -1, or a problematic creature, you can -3 to destroy it, and she sticks around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the other thing, though, is that this is an incredible payoff for a tokens deck, obviously. So I'm not sure about control for this, but if you are playing with a bunch of elves and stuff like that to ramp into this card, and you have things that are making 2 bodies for a single piece of cardboard, your reinforcements and all those kind of things, your
like a Boros Convoke, maybe?
Yeah, Boros Convoke kind of stuff for sure. This is in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah, this card seems pretty powerful. It's 5 mana, so I think it's going to take a lot to make it worthwhile outside of standard, but it could be. It's got a lot.
All right, here's another one that features one of the new mechanics of the set, which is Omen. It's artistically, graphically templated like Adventure, but it doesn't actually function like Adventure. So you have the big side, which is the Meringue River Regent. 4 blue for a 6/7 dragon with flying. When it enters, return up to 2 other target non-land permanents to their owner's hand. Or you can cast the Omen, which is called Coil and Catch. 3 and a blue for an instant, draw 3, discard a card, then shuffle this card into its owner's library. So unlike an adventure card, this doesn't go to exile to be cast later. It's just shuffled back into your library to be cast later if you can draw it again.
The main reason I want to talk about this card is that I think the Omen mechanic is pretty cool and interesting, especially if you want to get really weird and play it with Traverse the Ulenwald to be able to search up a good instant or creature. So I will definitely be having my eyes on this mechanic to see what ways we can break it, basically, right?
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted to talk about with this one when I saw it.
All right, let's turn up the notch a little bit on power.
Okay.
Let's look at Voice of Victory.
Okay.
1 and a white for a 1/3 human bard. It has Mobilize 2, which is also one of the new mechanics. When it attacks, create 2 tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature tokens, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. It also has a line of trinket text. Your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. That seems pretty good.
It does seem pretty good. I'm a little bit how powerful can this really be? But there's a lot of pieces here. You know what I mean? It's 2 mana. It's a 1/3. The Mobilize 2, I wonder how many Mobilize 2s we're even going to see, or if they're mostly going to be Mobilize 1. How many times are we going to get 2 tokens? The main thing about this that's a little tricky is you have to attack with this card in order to get Mobilize to trigger. It's not like it's just making tokens for you. So you need to be in a deck that's attacking. You need to be able to protect a 1/3 that's attacking or be killing your opponent's creatures like crazy to make it work. But the card does seem powerful and it's cheap.
It's so cheap.
What are you thinking about with this card? Do you just like bards?
I've always been a sucker for a loot. It might play pretty well with the new Elspeth in certain situations. There's a lot of doubling token enablers in Pioneer. There might be some other ones in Standard. It's probably not going in Boros Energy, but, this is one way to get to City's Blessing and to make a bunch of extra tokens if you can pair this with Ocelot Pride.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or, trigger Guide of Souls.
Oh my God, Guide of Souls with this is 2 triggers a turn. extra triggers a turn from a single piece of cardboard.
Yeah, who knows if it sniffs modern. I just think there's a lot of text here. It's really cheap. 3 toughness, I think, is actually not too bad, especially in Pioneer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like this card. I just wonder how powerful it's going to be, and really I feel like we haven't had your opponents can't cast spells during your turn on something in a while.
Yeah, like not since Teferi, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so just that in itself will be pretty good for sure.
Yeah. All right, I've got another Planeswalker for you.
Okay.
You may have heard of him. His name is Ugin.
Okay.
He's yoked now.
Yeah, he looks ripped. Ugin, Eye of the Storms.
7 mana, 7 generic mana for a 7 loyalty Planeswalker.
Oh, you don't say.
It has a static. When you cast this spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors.
Oh.
Whenever you cast a colorless spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors.
Come on.
That's 2 lines of static text.
That's crazy.
David, I have good news. It has 3 more abilities.
Oh my God.
+2 to gain 3 life and draw a card.
Okay.
0 to add 3 colorless. Okay. And then -11 to search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile, shuffle, and until end of turn you may cast those cards without paying their mana cost. So it's -11 to just put all of your Eldrazi and colorless Planeswalkers on the board. Could be good.
No, I think this card... So, yeah.
Is Tron back?
I mean, this card is super annoying to me because I hate these kind of strategies. But I mean, the fact that it lets you just basically Ulamog someone, where you can get rid of two target permanents that are 1 or more colors pretty easily twice. I mean, you can cast this, get rid of a permanent, then 0 it if you're tapped out to get 3 generic mana, get 3 colorless mana, and then drop an expedition map.
Yes.
And it's like a Vindicate.
Yes.
Like, what are we talking about?
Yes.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, this card does seem pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah, Tron might be back-ish. Eldrazi Tron, I would say. Ugin, why are you hanging out with Eldrazi? You were supposed to be fighting them before, I thought.
So I alluded to this card during our conversation. I'll just show you what I was alluding to so that you don't have to guess for the next 24 hours. It's Rakshasa's Bargain. It's a Sultai instant. You can either pay black, green, blue, or you can pay 2 generic mana to replace any of those colored pips.
Yeah, so they are 2 generic hybrid mana.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then it's an instant to look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 2 of them in your hand and the rest in your graveyard. That's actually not horrible for an instant if you can support the colors.
Yeah. I keep going back and forth on how good I think this card is, but it is like a mini dig through time. It's like a double impulse, but it costs 3. I don't know. I think it could be good. It's definitely something I'm going to want to play in limited.
Yeah.
Sure.
So those are kind of the main ones that I was eager to show you.
Okay.
There's one more that I want to just get a live reaction from you, and I'm going to load it up, and then I'm going to see what the sound you make.
So these are public.
Oh, this is public?
Yeah. These I think I already saw. Oh, no, maybe not. So these are the special guests in the set.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right?
I
You were trying to get me?
Foiled by my own petard. I told you this was happening.
Yeah.
It's only public to you and me.
Yeah. Okay. But this one is and I told nobody else, don't worry.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, so these are the fetch lands. The enemy fetch lands, the Zendikar original fetch lands, are in the set as special guests, which is cool. I mean, you get to pull a fetch land instead of what I pulled out of Aether Drift, which was like Fiend Artisan or whatever, when you get a special guest. So with all 5 of them in, I don't know what other special guests there are in the set, but it'll be a nice nice thing for people to be able to have to juice their collections a little bit.
Yeah, they're stunning full art renditions, and there's 10 of these.
Because there's 2 arts for each, right?
There's 2 arts for each. There's like the dragon art and the
Khan's art, kind of.
The secular art.
Yeah, the secular art. Well, I love Tarkir. I'm excited for this limited format because it was a banger 10 years ago. It's one of the best of all time. So I'm hoping that this one lives up to it.
All right, these last 2 cards, I believe these are being released on Wednesday by Polygon. And if they're not, we're just going to have to cut it out of the episode after the fact. But maybe you're hearing this now, in which case everything is above board. The first one is called Winter Night Stories. 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Draw 3 cards, discard 2 unless you discard a creature. And then it has Harmonize for 4 and a blue. Harmonize is one of the new abilities or mechanics from the set. You may cast this card from your graveyard for its Harmonize cost. You may tap a creature you control to reduce the cost by X, where X is its power, then exile the spell. So it's like Convoke meets Flashback.
Yeah, except for the power reduces the generic by the amount. So it can be a single creature you tap to reduce this down to a single blue, which is better than Convoke.
Sweet.
In some ways.
Yeah. Is it worth the effect of the card?
I mean,
maybe. Does Phoenix want this? Draw 3, discard 2, unless you discard a Phoenix. I guess you could discard a non-creature spell and then the Phoenix in that order.
Yeah, I'm totally blanking on the card name of the card where you can discard this same exact card exists, but you discard 2 unless you discard an artifact.
Right, and there's one for lands. Like this is a quasi cycle.
Yeah. I mean, I think this card is pretty good. The problem with this card is it's a sorcery.
Yeah.
And that's going to make it really tough to make this find a perfect home.
Yeah. For
anything, but netting 2 cards for this, getting to put some stuff into your graveyard is pretty good. It could be dredge. What about a dredgy thing for this?
We're making the same face where we're kind of scrunching up our nose as we say dredge.
But you get to cast it from your graveyard to be able to kick your engine going again. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's neat.
I mean, it's not as good as, faithless looting, but
a few cards are.
Yeah. So this card's cool. We'll see.
All right, the last one, Tempest Hawk.
Okay.
2 and a white for a flying 2/2 bird. This is a common. So you're gonna see this a lot. When this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may search your library for a card named Tempest Hawk, put in your hand, shuffle, and the deck can have any number of cards named Tempest Hawk.
Okay.
You love Squadron Hawk, right?
I mean, this card is hilarious, and it's nowhere near as powerful as Squadron Hawk, but
why not? Squadron Hawk
costs you 3 cards.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point. But you can only have 4 copies of Squadron Hawk in your deck.
Right. And this one, you can just do it over and over.
This one, you can have 5 copies.
Well, yeah, you can have, it can be anything. It can be a hawk.
It goes up to 11.
Yes. I mean, I think there's a chance that this could be a thing. It's just a question of how many you put in your deck, right? Because while the mana cost is prohibitive, the thing that's interesting about this is it hits harder, and if you get 2 down and they hit, you get to go get 2 more hawks. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't suffer from a lot of the problem that the other, like, Relentless, this is what Mark Rosewater and the panel that we saw called this the Relentless effect. I think it's a cool card. It's a nice callback to Squadron Hawk, and I guess we'll kind of see where it goes. But
yeah,
maybe.
So, we had Heir Apparent in Foundations, which is the Rabbit Noble, where you can have any number of Heir Apparents in your deck, and that sees no real constructed play outside of Commander. So yeah, Tempest Hawk, it's funny, it's cute. I was counting on you to say something hilarious.
Yeah, I did.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. I think this.
You got to talk to a hawk. You know what I'm saying? All right. Bye.
That's good. That was good. You should start a podcast where you advertise gambling sites.
Oh yeah, I love it. I thought we already were. Yeah. We talk about Moto and such.
That's true.
Yeah.
Tarkir, going to be fun. Modern, also going to be fun.
The dive down, going to be fun. Going to continue to be fun. Come and join us in the fun. Join the Patreon.
Please do. We are very seriously talking about going to the Spotlight Series in Indianapolis, which is the last weekend of May.
Yeah.
So we're going to start looking for lodging soon. You know, people, if you need to go on a Magic vacation, sometimes it takes a couple months to plan ahead. And if you want to see the dive down, this is one that we're considering going to, because Dave and I can carpool.
That's right.
That's
I mean, it makes it so much easier that we can just drive there.
That's the main appeal, isn't it? And we can buy fireworks on the way.
Of course.
And then shoot them from the car as we go down the highway.
Always that.
At dragonflies and cicadas.
Not in May.
All right, that wraps up this week's show. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. And if you use Apple or Spotify, please leave us a rating and review. And by the way, thanks to everyone who chimed into our Q&A last week where we were asking if we should focus more on standard or other RC formats. Felt like a little bit of a mixed bag. So
Felt like a mixed bag. A lot of people said it's okay to do a check-in, but please keep your hearts in modern. And that was maybe the takeaway I had. But, you know, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I think we're just going to do whatever the heck we want, and you're going to have to enjoy it.
Yeah, we're going to incoming a full card-by-card for limited review of Tarkir Dragonstorm, so be ready for that.
You are going to eat the slop we feed you, and you are going to like it.
Exactly.
On the dive down. And if you want to write to us about our slop, you can find us on Blue Sky at thedivedown.bluesky.something, or you can email thedivedown@gmail.com. You can support our show at patreon.com/thedivedown, get into our Discord, hear What's That in Your Pocket episodes as they come out. You can check out our store at thedivedown.com/store. We have promo codes with Heavy Play. The Dive Down 2025, all one word, gets you 10% off your first order at heavyplay.com. Also, promo code The Dive Down, all one word, gets you 25% cash back after 3 months of using a Mana Trader subscription. Check it out. Special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceblood for letting us use their music. And until next week, thank you for listening, even when our episode goes a little bit long. And we'll see you next week. Bye. Say bye, David.
Bye.